you've been implementing in your organisations. A very big thank you to the team at Steer for making this work stream happen. The team's put in a lot of time and effort going through heaps of data to extract insights for all of our recommendation reports, the net change outcomes that you've received this week, this session, and we'll also be receiving a big report from them as well. So you may know that this programme was very much a pilot. We are now in the process of documenting your feedback and all the lessons learnt. Survey responses so far have showed that people really value the audit and the recommendation reports. We are commissioning an independent post-project evaluation review, which will make recommendations for optimising and enhancing all 4 of the work streams going forward. We'll also be holding, over the next few months, we'll be publishing the anonymised cohort-wide outcomes reports for each work stream, as well as some case studies and toolkits. So do keep an eye out for all of that collateral coming your way. And we will be holding a closing celebration event on Wednesday, the 12th of March, where we'll be summarising programme-wide outcomes, hear from programme participants with panel discussions and more. More details available soon. Today, though, we're here to hear from Steer on the outcomes and successes of the freight workstream, of course. So I'm going to hand straight over to Krista. Thanks, Krista.
Hi everyone. I think I am familiar with everyone on the call here, though I'd just like to echo Mim there and thank you all for your time and effort. It's been really interesting going through all the data that you've taken the time to record. So yeah, I work at Steer and I've been offering the project support and data analyst for the project. So yeah, I'm delighted to be here to present the results, which I'm hoping you're excited to hear. But yeah, I'll pass to Ali.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for taking the time to join this session today. So I'm Ali Memory, a principal consultant in Steer's London office, and I've been the project manager on this freight work stream from our side since we kicked off the project. I think it was last October now, so really excited to be able to present back the findings to you all today. Lots of hard work gone into it. Thanks.
Lovely. Mim, do we want to go quickly round or shall I just head straight in?
I think, yeah, it's nice just to give a shout out to which businesses are on the call. That would be quite a good idea.
Yeah. Okay, I'll pick Lucinda if you wouldn't mind kicking us off.
Hello, I'm Lou Raggett. I'm from RCOG over in Union Street, and yes, we found the freight audits very helpful from our business operations point of view. Thank you.
And Nima?
Yes, I'm Nima Ray from Thamesis Dock and the Battersea Barge. We're boats on the river near Vauxhall. And yeah, I've come into it a little bit later, but I think we've found it really interesting. So thank you very much.
Great. Thomas?
Hello, yep, so I'm Thomas Perry, work at Prager Metis, accountancy and business manager, specialised in the music industry, based in down Bear Lane in Southwark. And yeah, we found it really insightful, sort of looking at what we were currently doing, what we're doing now, and found the recommendations really useful as well. Thanks.
Lovely. Angela?
Hiya, I'm Angela from the Bluefin building. It's actually my colleague Anne-Marie was mainly leading on this, who is also on the call. And yeah, so we found it really interesting. I think we're both also quite interested to hear from others on what's been useful at their sites as well.
Great. Anne-Marie, if we jump quickly to you, I guess, say hello.
Hi, I'm Anne-Marie, Assistant Property Manager at Bluefin Building.
Lovely. And then Megan.
Hi, sorry, it's a bit noisy in the background, but I'm Megan from Into Art, and we're an arts charity based in Peckham. And yeah, we've really enjoyed being a part of the freight stream, and it's been really helpful to just kind of even keep track of like how much we're ordering and stuff. And so yeah, it's definitely been useful.
Great, thank you. And then Veronica and Kelly, if you both want to go next, I think you're both from Monster, aren't you?
Yes, hi, I'm Veronica. I'm the finance supervisor for One Store. We are an MSP not far from Borough, and we absolutely love this, and we can't wait to do all the other streams as well.
Oh, great.
Hi, I'm Kelly. So I am in the people team here at One Store. I used to be in the procurement team. So yeah, this was particularly insightful for me in terms of handling our kind of shipments. And yeah.
Great. And Agatha?
Hi, yes, guys. Hi. So my name is Agatha. I'm from Polar Thomas Edwards. It's an architect practice in Islington. And yeah, this is our second year in a row when we do this forums. And yeah, we've been like really enjoying that as well, especially like with the amount of sample of bricks that we are receiving. So yeah, yeah, looking forward to the results. Thank you, guys.
Great. And Thomas, I believe you're from Team London Bridge, but
yeah,
yeah.
That's right. Yes, I'm sort of representing Fully Charged today. I feel like I'm sort of seconded to Fully Charged now, effectively. But yeah, I've got the data in front of me. So thanks, Kristen.
Great. Okay. Right then. So just to quickly cover off the purpose of today, we're going to recap what the work stream entailed, but obviously you've all been involved, so we won't dwell too much, just a recap. We'll give a bit of an overview of who else has been involved in the programme. I know some of you through like the training sessions might be aware of some of the other businesses, but this will give you a total overview. We'll then share the anonymised cohort-wide results. So you will have received your individual business data. So yeah, just to stress that the data presented today will be anonymised completely. And we'll be looking at that in terms of both the volume change and the net change in emissions. We've then got some reflections on the results from our perspective. So I'll be covering those sections, and then I'm going to pass over to Ali, who will cover the lessons learnt and also some ideas that we've put together on how SCC partners could further support SMEs in the future. And then, so yeah, a lot of it is kind of on us, but we don't want that to overshadow this as an opportunity for you guys to hear about each other's experiences on the programme, and also, like Mim said, provide feedback on how it can be improved going forward. And we're keen for all ideas, all the honest truth about how you found it. So we've done introductions, so I'll kick off. So just to recap quickly on what the opportunity was. So it's all about making more sustainable and efficient decisions when it comes to delivery and servicing activities. And the programme has been structured for us to give you end-to-end support. And obviously you've put in a lot of time and effort into collecting all the data in our audit periods, which we've gone away and kind of looked at and then come back with recommendations about changes you could implement to drive not only a change in your emissions, hopefully a reduction, but also to improve cost and efficiency savings. So then kind of looking back on the programme, it's hopefully been a useful tool for you to demonstrate kind of what you've been undertaking to kind of benchmark what your impact currently is and the steps that you're taking to improve that position. So I'll rattle through this because I think this is something you'll all be very familiar with. But the programme consisted of 4 stages. First was onboarding and training, which fed straight into the first round of audits, which of course lasted 2 weeks, and there were a choice of 4. Oops. Then stage 3 was the window in which we came back to you, we presented that analysis and the recommendations we thought might suit your business, and obviously had that kind of discussion about what would be feasible, and then you had the opportunity to go away and implement those changes ahead of the second round, which was stage 4, to really see any change, like we said, in the volume of activity and the amount of emissions. So overview of participants. There's a key distinction here that I'll try and make clear, so let me know if you've got any questions on this. But number of engaged, talks about the number of businesses and sites who initially showed interest in the programme. So we had some level of engagement with them to understand about their, what their operations were and what their suitability for the programme was. And as you can see, it then jumps down. And so there were some businesses that we thought maybe would suit a different work stream better, or there were a myriad of reasons. So this shows the total number who kind of showed an interest, and then number of enrolled shows the number of businesses that actually proceeded and went ahead with the programme. So these numbers match the number of baseline only audits completed. So those are the kind of the businesses that we started with at the start of the work stream. You'll then see this next column is the number of baseline and post-implementations audits completed. So these are the businesses and the sites that completed both audits, and that's a key factor, because these are the sites and businesses that we focused our analysis on, because that's how we can best show the net change. So at this point, businesses kind of approached us, and a couple of them had multiple sites. So in that instance, they've completed the audits across multiple premises. So that's the distinction there between number of businesses and number of sites. The number of recommendations pack issues matches the number of businesses who completed the baseline audit. So that's where we compiled our analysis and presented the recommendations. And then last, we've got the EDI target businesses enrolled. This is slightly lower than the workstream target of 25%. I do think it's worth noting that when people kind of registered and didn't the onboarding form, this is a percentage taken of people who confirmed. Lots of businesses kind of came back with NA or chose not to respond. So just worth considering. And so looking at these boxes to the bottom, it was really great that we had such a varied, spread of businesses across a range of sectors. It made it really interesting kind of thinking about the recommendations, what might apply in one sector might not in another. So for example, your restaurants compared to your offices, kind of very different operations. So that was really great to get that variety of data. We had one business who undertook a 1-week mini audit, and that was because I think they couldn't commit the resource from day dot to do both of the audits, and they didn't have the resource to do the 2 weeks. So they kind of got an abbreviated version of the recommendations pack to kind of highlight what their level of activity was and some recommendations. And then this last box here in red is showing that between the baseline audits and the post-implementation audits, we had sites withdraw. So that's 38%, which is unfortunate, but I think there were very valid reasons. And I think that's something that we're definitely capturing in our reporting to feedback and consider why that is. So a lot of it might have been around resource availability, for example. So here we've got a map showing where all of the participating sites are, and we've got the distinction here between, so blue means both audits were completed, and orange means just the baseline was completed. As you can see, there are businesses that took part that fall outside of Southwark. The reason for this is we had a quota of 40 businesses, and so we were trying to engage as much as possible, and then we decided to expand the opportunity outside of the borough and approach businesses who had previously participated in the Business Climate Challenge. So it's been really great to have those of you who've been involved in both challenges on board. So that explains that. But as you can see, most of the businesses fall within Better Bankside boundaries. Southwark Other means within the borough, but outside one of the bid boundaries. And yeah, we've got a couple from, outside and north of the river as well. So moving on to the really meaty part, the results. I'll just recap here. Hopefully most of you didn't realise this, but from your recommendations pack, most of the recommendations fall into one of the following 4 categories. So I won't go through each bullet point, but it's, yeah, they were focused about remoding, so that's taking vehicles from being diesel and hopefully getting them to electric, or maybe, you know, cargo bikes, retiming outside of peak hours to reduce that impact when it's particularly busy, reduce, so whether that's consolidation of the types of goods or where you're getting your deliveries from. And then rerouting is looking at kind of, are you getting, for example, your milk from Newcastle? Is there a milk supplier perhaps within London that, you know, you could shorten that overall journey? And it's also about making sure that the delivery at your premises is efficient as possible. So, for example, there's a clear area for them to kind of stop and unload rather than the driver having to go around the block, for example. So this pie chart here shows, kind of reflects back on how many were able to implement any measures. So really positively, nearly all, so 95%, you know, did at least one, but 55% at least three. So that's really positive. And we're quite proud of that. I think we were quite concerned that, you know, we wanted to give recommendations that you guys were able to definitely take away and implement. We didn't want it to be, you know, pie in the sky. So that's good. And then this slide here is summarising which measures businesses found easiest and quickest to implement. So obviously under reduce, you're talking about consolidation and kind of bulk purchasing and engaging with suppliers to reduce the frequency of deliveries. I think it's a pleasure to hear from you guys that actually you found it really insightful, because I think a lot of the time, you know, you're just ticking along. It takes something like this to make you realise potential patterns and potential room to kind of increase efficiency. And I think, yeah, a key one that we found was useful across multiple sites was about making sure that if you're, you know, engaging with couriers, you can consolidate your collections deliveries so they only have to visit your premises once. We've got remode and reroute. So again, not to pick on, there was an example of milk coming from quite a distance. So I guess, yeah, are there more local suppliers that you can have a shorter journey for? And then engaging with suppliers to just let them know perhaps that you're quite sustainability minded. It's something you're paying attention to. If they have electric vehicles in their fleet, expressing an interest in having those come to your premises is well worth doing. And then checking the time of deliveries and their origin points. Again, if you can communicate that with your suppliers and they're open to it, it's a quick win, as they say. And then there was a big piece on engagement. I guess this covers more staff here, but how do you bring people along with you in the journey, kind of demonstrating to them that this is something important and why they should be invested in that as well. So this is kind of a breakdown of the net change in activity between the baseline and post-implementation audits. So just to clarify again, this analysis has been undertaken for the sites that have completed both audits. So for the baseline, 24 sites completed the audit and 330 activities recorded. So of those sites, 15 completed the post-implementation audit as well. So of those, it's 1,093 activities recorded and 1,031 recorded in the post-implementation audit. This led to a 6% reduction in activity between the two. So our target was 10. So although we didn't hit the target, we thought it was still good that we've made a reduction. And we might not have made that 10% reduction, but that might be because of a myriad of factors. So we are aware that, you know, some of the recommendations to be implemented might be more on the longer term. You've only just maybe started implementing them, or you couldn't do it at this time of year and it's something on your to-do list for next year. So there are valid reasons as to things are still in progress, and that's a very important thing of the fact of the programme, that it doesn't end, you know, in March when we have the kind of wrap-up party. It's kind of what change can we continue to take forward. So moving on to change in emissions. So again, of the 15 sites that completed both of the audits, we've got the number of activities recorded for both, and then these are the associated emissions. So we've got carbon, which I think is the most commonly referred to, but we've also got nitrous oxide, and we've also got particulate matter. So particulate matter is equally important, I think, when talking about electric vehicles, because although they don't have the same, carbon emissions, so to speak, the particulate matter is still important. So in that regard, we're thinking, if it can go by cargo bike, the better. So as we can see, across all three types of emissions, we did see an increase. And we'll go into reasons why for that, and it's a big factor in our report back to the Better Bank side as to reasons for this. But it is important to know that 8 sites did experience a reduction across all three, and it really did depend on a site-by-site basis. Some sites had an increase in carbon, but a decrease in the other 2, and vice versa. It really does depend. And another site also achieved a reduction in carbon and nitrous oxide. So this is the reflections on the results. So like I said, there might be an increase in particular activities requiring diesel vehicles. So I think going through the analysis and our engagement calls with you, understanding, for example, like refrigerated trucks, there might be an element that you've got more activities demanding a truck like that. There are fewer on the market at the moment that are electric. Higher proportion of diesel vehicles being used out of all of the modes, attributed to freight activity. We've got greater reliance on assumptions for businesses. So I think in this instance, where we didn't have the full amount of data that we required to complete our calculations, we had to make assumptions that we thought through to work out kind of what we could substitute in to fill those gaps. And as much as we try and make those assumptions as realistic as possible, inevitably it's a second place to having the actual data there. And then increase in growth in business operations between the 2 periods. Obviously, we are aware of the fact that due to the length of the programme, we were assessing, a period in kind of January to April against September to October. So naturally, your type of business operations might either be seasonal or might grow depending on the nature of your business. And then greater knowledge and familiarity. So obviously the baseline audit, it was the first time you were doing this, and as with a lot of things, when you're doing it a second time, you've got more familiar with the tool, you've got a greater understanding of what kind of data you're supposed to be collecting, and that might be informed as well of kind of our discussions with you being like, oh, actually it would be really good if you'd collected that, so the second time round you might have filled in trips that you might not have done the first time. So yes, I will pass on to Ali now.
Thanks, Krista. Before we get into the recommendations part, I was just going to pause, see if there are any questions about the analysis of results and how we've presented it. I know there was a lot of data just gone through there, so happy to open up if anyone's got any questions, jump in or use the raise hand function. No, otherwise I will continue on then, and we can save discussion part till the end of the session. Next slide, please, Krista. So I think whilst a key element of our scope, apart from freight workstream, was to do the analysis, really try to meet that target of the 10% reduction in trips associated with deliveries and emissions. Another important part of this project was looking at the programme itself. Does it work well? Does it meet the objectives of the Southwark Climate Collective programme? What could be improved next time if the bid or another organisation, whether that be an alternative bid, another project partner, another London borough, if they wanted to pick it up and run it again, if more funding rounds were to come forward and to expand it out to a wider or a new group of businesses. So we've done a lot of reflections and lessons learned using a lot of the feedback from our own perspectives, from speaking with Mim and Sadie, the other project partners, and also with many of you on the call today. Your feedback's been really invaluable that we've received to date. I think this slide shows the top 5 themes that came out of this, but I'll talk to in a bit more detail. So I think interesting knowing whilst freight and delivery servicing all contributes to a high generator of emissions in central London from business activity, there could be a broader scope to look at as part of future similar programmes to look at staff and visitor travel behaviour to and from your premises, as that really is also a key contributor to emissions generated. So we'd hope in central London that a lot of staff would travel by sustainable modes, walking, cycling and public transport, but we understand that might not always be the case, particularly for more niche visitors, ad hoc travel. So it could be expanded to look at opportunities to capture that. At Steer, we've done lots into behaviour change programmes and capturing this, so we could think a bit more about the methods on that. Looking at a longer implementation phase for the programme was the next one. So as Krista went through, we had a relatively short window for businesses to be able to implement our recommended measures from the baseline audits up to the post-implementation audits. It takes a bit of time for participants to get up to speed with the recommended change and being able to implement that measure. It's often not a quick thing you can go away and action the following week. It takes a bit of time, particularly when it involves more like sign off from other departments or senior level. So having an extended programme across a year, potentially, we heard some feedback on that could help to drive more change and give businesses a bit longer to make these changes as part of their organisational practices. Looking at the data collection process, we got quite a lot of feedback on this, on how it could be streamlined going forward. We understand that participants encountered some difficulties in collecting all the different metrics that are required as part of that we put on our digital tool, which hopefully you found as easy to use as possible. We went through quite a lot of testing at the beginning of the project to make sure that it was quick and easy to use, but we understand that there were times it was difficult to capture things like the number of drop-offs that delivery drivers had already done before coming to your business to deliver certain goods or do servicing, and also where the supplier origin point was, where the delivery drivers had started their journey that day. We understand that information is difficult to get and it can take a lot of time on your side collecting that. So potentially the programme could look at options of outsourcing that data collection piece to try and get more robust data coming forward and a wider data set. On the accountability side, the 4th point here, so it's great you've managed to gather the data and we've come up with recommendations, which we hope that many of you will continue to implement going forward. I think it's coming up with a mechanism of actually monitoring that against your targets and what you're hoping to achieve from implementing that particular action. So coming up with some system of that would be a really worthwhile process to add into the programme as a later stage. And the final one on here is just to look at more different types of methodologies. We looked at a more simplistic stream where it's just what the delivery and servicing activity, how that equates to emission types. But there's obviously a lot more variance and factors that come into understanding emissions in this sector. So there could be something to do with estimating emission reduction and the actual air quality improvements. Often we use the language around, NOx reduction, PM10 reduction or increases, but what does this actually mean in terms of air quality improvements? Where's the correlation, and potentially making this a clearer piece, which can go back to, helping to get more buy-in from your staff on what the issue is at hand. And I think we've already touched on this point, but looking at the correlation in business growth. So if your business is expanding either in the number of employees you're bringing in or different types of business operations, how does that correlate to particular types of freight activity, deliveries and servicing? Next slide, please, Kristen. So just to recap again on sort of the benefits for your business in taking our recommendations forward. We hope that many of you have still continued with exploring those actions we put in your recommendations packs. But if you are to continue with doing them, that can help to achieve these items going forward. So greater efficiency for your organisation can help to free up time for your staff spent receiving goods and undertaking procurement activities, which we know is a really valuable asset, and being able to use that staff resource on more productive alternative actions. Cost, if you can continue with implementing some of those measures, it will help your suppliers in the longer term and their delivery drivers in some instances avoid expensive fines by avoiding loading and unloading practices at places that are not supposed to be on the highway network outside your premises. So it's things like that that can overall reduce costs for your business operations. Emissions, I think this has already been gone through already and you're already familiar about it. The switch to sustainable freight vehicles will help to reduce emissions from the activity, from your business activity, and that can help, you know, draw together an education piece on corporate social responsibility. It's good for your marketing as well to show that you're a sustainable firm. And the last one on reputation. So yeah, again, customers are increasingly keen to buy from greener suppliers that use low or zero carbon modes. It's becoming more common now within the sort of supplier sector, and you see it increasingly more as part of tender contracts. Like that's often stipulated as a key thing that major businesses are looking for now. And by switching to those, you know, lighter, smaller modes of transport, like cargo bikes, things like that, it can help to facilitate a safer pedestrian and cyclist environment in proximity of your business for employees and visitors. So that's something that I know we all want to achieve when you've got your staff travelling to work in the morning, leaving in the evening, or on their lunch breaks. We all want a safer, cleaner environment outside our place of work. So hopefully you keep that in mind when looking towards the future, and we hope that you can continue to implement these measures. Next slide, please. So we wanted to think again a bit more strategically on a higher level on how you know, SCC partners, whether that's Best Bankside bid, some of the other bids involved, Southwark Council, how they could support Southwark SMEs in the future. So one of the first point is looking at complete a comprehensive review of the work stream to evaluate how it worked in practice. So touching on some of the items that I went through a few slides ago. The second one is looking at assess the benefits of additional storage within the, you know, the bid boundary of the administrative area. So this could be using, you know, car parks that are currently underutilised under some of the railway arches that the bid is afforded with in the area. See if you can convert those into places for storage for the businesses, which could help to reduce the delivery frequency from suppliers to each of those individual businesses. It could help to streamline the delivery frequency and explore the practicalities of doing so. Of course, there will be challenges with running such consolidation opportunities, but that's something worth looking at. The third one is investigating the introduction of a buyers club and the provision of information for these local suppliers that are selected across core goods types. So that might be from fruit and milk deliveries to the offices, It could be for stationery or waste and recycling suppliers. So there's been a few examples of these buyers clubs introduced across London, like the New West End company's got a preferred waste contractor that services all of the Regent Street and Bond Street businesses. So in turn, that reduces the overall number of diesel lorry trips that are coming into the area, which is great. And there is the option sometimes the businesses that sign up to that club, they get offered preferential rates and discounts for going with that particular supplier. The fourth one is establishing a freight forum to meet on a regular basis, whether it's every 6 months, every 4 months, even a year, which would give Southwark businesses a platform to discuss constraints and opportunities around sustainable freight. What we've heard from a lot of you is that you like hearing about what other businesses similar to yourself have also been able to implement, where they are faced with challenges and how they've overcome those, what they can learn from each other. So that's the idea of that. We've had success with this in London Bridge itself, actually, where on behalf of Team London Bridge, we did a forum like this a couple of years ago, where we got some of the major landowners in the same room together to talk about their challenges, which brought some really good success stories forward. And the fifth one, again, I think it's building a bit on the freight training, the 3 sessions that were offered through this SCC programme, but making it more an internal targeted session for individual businesses to potentially focus on a particular challenge or a theme that you're encountering when it comes to your delivery and servicing operations. Bringing forward a bespoke knowledge share sessions where you can try and bring different staff members from different divisions in your business into the same room to be able to explain the problem in a bit more detail, the context and what the opportunities could be. So I think we've selected these as the top 5 things really that any SCC partner could look at taking forward to help improve the sustainability of businesses going forward. Next slide, please. So this was the last slide we actually had up as part of our session, as we would like to use, the remaining 20 minutes to turn the floor back to all of you as the participants on the project. We've put up some prompting questions on this slide and would really like to hear any feedback you can provide us with. The 3 questions we've got up are, first of all, if you've got any questions to Krista or I, as we've been involved in the programme from the start, about the results or how we selected the businesses, anything like that, or to Sadie and Mim at the bid. Any general experience of the programme, we welcome the good and the maybe not so good, so that we can reflect on how the programme could be strengthened going forward. We appreciate we've already had quite a bit of feedback in different forms, but anything new or to expand on any comments previously provided, that would be great. And we've reflected, the last point is we've reflected on what we think could work well for a similar programme going forward, but we're interested to hear from your perspective as a business, like what could help you in achieving some of your sustainability goals going forward when it comes to servicing and deliveries. So if anyone would like to make any comments, ask us any questions, I'll turn it over to the floor. Unless everyone wants to be very quiet on their lunch break today.
What I might do, Ali, is I might do a screenshot and post it in the chat, and then I can stop sharing screen so we can see each other, if that's okay.
That's a good idea, Krista.
Okay, one second. Here we go. Okay, that's sent, so everyone should have that now.
Thomas, got your hand up. Go ahead. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, got it. Thank you. Really great to see. I really appreciate everything you guys are doing. I can see where you've hit the marks in terms of getting us to the point of getting this data. It's really, really helpful. So kind of asking a question on behalf of Fully Charged. One for the other businesses really, was there anybody who was aware of ordering a lot of things internationally, things being shipped from abroad, that managed to get any positive change affected to how international suppliers might be shipping goods? It's obviously the reason why I'm asking this question, it just felt really, really out of their reach, really out of their power, and it's where the majority of their orders came from. So that was their frustration. But if anybody else is getting any positive change in that area, I'd love to hear about it. Maybe it's one for future knowledge sharing sessions as well.
I think that's a great question. Krista, do you know if we had any from our business, other participants that had these international deliveries coming in? Because I know when we did the data analysis, we did have to make some assumptions, didn't we, on like Port Dover or East Midlands Airport.
We definitely did. I think for this program in particular, obviously there was the supply chain program as well, which I think looked at the kind of journeys more broadly from the ultimate origin into the country and then to their premises. But the scope of this work stream was particularly looking at kind of that last leg from the depot. But I agree, I think it is a challenge of how do you implement any effective change on the broader journey. So sorry if this is not the best answer to the question, but I think for the scope of this, we were actually trying to encourage people to capture that depot location as opposed to the ultimate location. Yeah, but I agree, it's a very interesting point.
Yeah, makes sense. Now I understand the scope there on that point. Yeah.
We definitely had to make some assumptions on some cases about where items were coming from, but it's a good point. It's all good and well like making your UK freight journeys as sustainable as possible, but it's the the first mile abroad, what can be done on that side.
That's that was kind of it. It was also that the timings of things coming through, then you couldn't really consolidate so easily as well at the UK end, because it was whenever the 5 different international suppliers products arrived in the depot in the UK that decided when they'd go out at our end. So yeah,
you'd hope from these sort of large haulage companies we would try and consolidate it in some way coming out from these large international borders, but challenging to know. This problem when you don't have this freight data from these large companies, it's very difficult to understand like what's the capacity of their vehicles. Are they travel a load of lorries going on our motorways but are not full, and where's the end point? Are they consolidating deliveries? I think it's a challenge we often have on our projects and really getting that concrete data. Was there any other things from Fully Charged that they struggled to think how they could address it going forward? Did you hear any feedback from them?
There were, if no one else is coming in with a point just yet, I could just share that it was their capacity that's the challenge. I don't suppose they'd mind me sharing this, that it was just in terms, I think your point about engagement, supplier engagement is really key and it's the next step, but as an individual business going through a challenging time, it was just capacity to try to think that far ahead and to be this proactive. So I welcome the suggestion about freight forum, for example, because we could have discussions on their behalf.
That's a good point. I think you and Mim also spoke on the data collection point for Fully Charged. It was quite hard to get the right data from delivery drivers that just didn't have the time or were asked the same questions on each of their visits, which we can understand gets quite painful on their side. as well. Do you think there's anything more to elaborate on that in terms of data collection, how it could be, you know, whether that step could be removed from the process or how it might help going forward?
I don't have all the answers, but it makes me realise that it was the same drivers we were talking to for across the sort of 3-4 weeks we were doing this, and that creates a bit of a funny reality, doesn't it, where the person who's physically causing the emissions, no fault of their own, they're just doing their job, but they're aware of you, they're aware that we're studying this, but they've kind of got no buy-in and no real, like, this seems to be superfluous and kind of something in the way of their job some of the time. Some of them are really interested by it, so it was different. But it is funny, isn't it, that at the business end of freight, you've got the person doing the freighting who is a bit sort of surprised to think that oh my God, consolidating from you know, why would you be doing that? So kind of just an eye-opener as to where we're at engaging with the sector on some level with the people who are obviously extremely busy and keeping us all serviced in our offices, obviously. So
quite interesting to do some of the data recording yourself and seeing how it works on the ground and where the challenges are. Were there any other comments from other businesses related to that point around like the data collection process? Any challenges you had? Any really difficult things that seemed impossible to capture at the time? Lucinda, go ahead.
Few bits and pieces. Some of it's already been covered, but within our building, we work quite closely with a catering company who provides our events and hospitality on our behalf. So kind of engaging with those key areas and departments, if you like, was really important from the beginning. And looking at that 6% that you quoted between the baseline and the second audit, definitely for us, the experience was we really kind of, I guess, upped it a gear on the second round, and that might account for you know, it being 6 rather than 10, because actually what we were finding was that everybody was much more engaged because we'd done a round of it. Everyone was kind of, that momentum was there, and we were recording a lot more. So I think in the first round we definitely missed some data from some of our partners, and I'm giving our catering partner as the example. And then the second round I managed to liaise directly with the chef who could give me a breakdown of the kind of the week's deliveries a lot more quickly and a lot more efficiently than we'd probably done the first time round. So it's little things like that when you kind of multiply that with all the different users of the building and all the individual collections, that might account for that kind of 6 where really the target was 10. It's going to have an impact on that. But that was particularly tricky, but definitely the second wave of the audit was more successful for us.
Yeah, right. Were there any other participants on the call that had a similar experience with that were potentially a bit more familiar with the tool second time round, a bit more confident in getting the right data when the delivery came in? Welcome any further feedback on that. No, I appreciate quite a few people on the call as well would not have been involved directly in the data recording themselves. Were there any other points about our presentation, like will the results seem surprising, that even though there was a reduction in trips, that there's still a slight increase in emissions overall? Did anyone's got any other insights on how it may be? Thomas, jump in.
Not exactly relevant to that question though, sorry Ali.
That's okay.
But there's more of a question for the Bluefin team. Hi. So the idea of multi-occupancy, I think it was really great that you guys managed to collect some data for a big building like yours. You know, our street, for example, so we could treat a street the same way if we could copy your model, but I'd like to hear a bit about how it went and whether it was how possible it was. We've perhaps got London Bridge City interested in doing something in the future, so it's interesting how they might count at their freight bays, at their loading bays, rather than individual businesses doing
Yeah, I mean, we have one loading bay for the whole building. So what we did was we let the occupiers know that we were going to do the study, and then we arranged for one of our security officers. We brought in an additional security officer to cover for one of our long-standing security officers who used to be the loading bay manager and is very sort of switched on and savvy. So he was the person who was recording everything. I think we maybe found some of the categories slightly limiting. It was so because there was only certain categories, so it might have been slightly. I'm just sort of looking. Sorry, Anne-Marie's literally just to the side of me, so I'm just looking to Anne-Marie if I've understood this correctly. But there could have maybe been room for a little bit more drilling down into the categories to get it exactly right, because some of them, yeah. So maybe that could be looked at in the review. I think we didn't find it difficult collecting the data. I think our difficulty was what to then do with that data, because we sort of started the project because with the SCC, the other streams, we already have either sort of departments within our central colleague support teams that help us with that, or things like waste management, for example. We're sort of well down the path on that, so we thought this was the one that we could hopefully do something with. And we're also quite concerned about the air quality in our loading bay, because we have teams that work in there, so we wanted to look at that. But we found it's actually very difficult because we sent the recommendations out to the occupiers, but I think because the recommendations were quite broad and it didn't maybe have quite so much, I'm not sure how much scope there is for. I just note the point on the longer term follow-up that there might be scope for a bit of discussion about, okay, well, what could be suggested for how we implement some of these things and what's worked at other sites and stuff like that. We also struggled a bit because I think we let the guys at Steer know that from the first audit, we should have had our new catering operator in place by the time we had the second audit, and in between times, one of our big actions was going to be to push the occupiers and ourselves to work with them for all their catering deliveries and their tea point deliveries, and they're still not fully up and running. So again, the thing on the longer term notes about maybe doing it with a bigger gap, I think would be quite useful for us. So yeah, actually collecting the data was completely fine because we managed the loading bay, so it was being done whether anybody read my email or not. We just did it. So it wasn't really a challenge. I don't know over at LBC whether they have, because that's an estate rather than a standalone building, so they've got they would have to do that per loading bay, so it would be a case of how they would manage that. But I'm sure they've got security in the loading bays over there, I would have thought.
Yeah, very briefly, they do have the one main one, but after walking the area, you could see deliveries happening from every which way. It would be like whack-a-mole.
Yeah, and of course we've got retail units on our ground floor, and some of them have deliveries through the front doors rather than through. In fact, I think all of them have their deliveries through the front doors. So we were really only focusing on the office occupiers for hours. Yeah, it did strike me. Something else struck me a bit over the weekend, that there's a couple of things. There's one that, why is it still all diesel vehicles? Like, what's the reason behind that? It would be interesting to understand that a bit more, because obviously we're in the congestion zone area, so I know you are permitted some diesel vehicles within that, but you would have thought that companies would be delivery companies and other service partner companies that need to use vehicles to come into town. You would think they would be looking at better alternatives than diesel vehicles, and what we can do to try and encourage that with our occupiers. We already have things like that in our own procurement policies. And the other thing is just, I guess, the convenience around consolidation and whether or not you always get the choice with that as the consumer. I placed an order over the weekend with a well-known online retailer, and was not expecting it to have been delivered by 8 o'clock the following morning, when I only ordered it at kind of tea time on Saturday, and it had turned up by breakfast on Sunday. And I was like, well, I didn't need this overnight. I didn't need people to work overnight to send me my vitamins. That's crazy. But I didn't have an option of choosing a slower delivery or consolidating. So I don't know, that's probably not something we can solve, but there are quite a few challenges to getting people to give up convenience. So there's maybe something around what help can we get to demonstrate why it's important and what the benefits are, if that makes any sense. So
No, it does some really good points, put in there, a mixture of the feedback and the suggestions going forward. A lot of things we've talked about already with Mim and Sodhi, like on the sort of marketing behaviour change piece. It's a lot of like individual preferences as well as what the supplier can do from their end. It starts with that initial decision on the procurement side, and being able to have that option of selecting, you know, your selected delivery day. It can be consolidated with other items within that order. I think on the diesel vehicle side, that's, yeah, it's a really good point that they're obviously all paying the congestion charge to be able to deliver to the participants on this call. I think on the commercial sector, a lot of these vehicles, like the lower emission ones, a lot of them are not available yet on the market that are at a you know, a financially viable price for those organisations to purchase that fleet and be able to do their operations in that. Hence, a lot of them have just stuck with diesel for the time being going forward, and then they'll make that change when it does become on market a bit more. Obviously, are some situations where you do see a lot of electric vans going around with particular like supplier career firms, but I think generally for quite a few big suppliers, it's just not yet an option. They will just take for charge instead, the congestion charge, and deal with it in the next few years when they need to, the next fleet renewal. But yeah, it is I always think it's surprising walking around our office in Southwark how many diesel lorries you still see, vans everywhere. I think anything else on the you mentioned on the categories on the data entry tool. Are you able to expand a little bit more on which ones were a bit limiting when you were selecting your deliveries? Don't know if you don't know them off the top of.
No, it wasn't me that was doing it. It was just I don't know, Anne-Marie, would you have more information on that? No. Okay. I think it was just a comment that, yeah. So Mark was just getting on with it, but I think it was more that sometimes there were things coming in that maybe weren't in the category list, or it was that things were being
miscellaneous things.
Yeah, so a lot of things were going in. A lot of things were going in as just sort of one broad category, but then it was a bit like, well, is that a personal delivery or a work delivery, or is it? I don't know. We can check in with Mark and get a bit more information on that.
Yeah, that could be useful just if we were to use the tool again in the future, like because we went through quite a lot of like pilot testing and seeing if it worked well, and there's still a few like bugs, nuances that we can amend for future versions. Yeah, that would be quite useful.
Yeah.
Are there any comments? I see we're nearly at time now and don't want to keep you all hanging on, but any final thoughts? Anyone? No? Okay, well, I'd like to take this opportunity to say just thank you very much for all your time and commitment and perseverance into the project. We think it has been a real success. It's been a great learning exercise on our side as well. Speaking from a more technical perspective, yeah, it's been great getting to know all of you, and yeah, really fun project for actually us to work on. So thank you very much.
Thank
you.
Krista.
Thanks so much.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
Cheers.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.